5. Yeah. All right. So thank you all for coming. I'm Steve Wilcoxon. I'm a city council member from Ward 2. I'm going to share my screen here for a presentation that I'm going to give with the agenda for the meeting, and then kind of explain the process. And then we'll have some time later on to have input from you folks. And at that point, you'll have to unmute yourself. Folks who are doing this on a telephone, what are the instructions for that?
No one's on a phone.
Okay, so it doesn't look like anybody's on a phone. So we'll just get started with the presentation. All right. Again, thanks for being here tonight. This is what this meeting is going to look like. We had another meeting in January where a lot of information was covered with longer presentations. We're going to cut those back a bit. City manager is on, but is not going to do welcoming today. The introductions, we have Joe Myers, the Director of Economic Development. Kyle Brasser represents the developer who is looking to develop 945 Clark Road, and you know me. So I'll just get in. So I'm going to do this short presentation. I'll pick out certain slides from the longer presentation. We'll make this available on the website so that people can see the whole presentation. And I'll give that about 10 minutes. And then we'll talk about the application to be on the ad hoc committee and I just want to point out that is going to be closing on Friday, February 11th at 4 p.m. so that we can get that get those compiled. Then Joe Myers will give a brief presentation on the development concept and the incentive request that has triggered this process. We'll have some brief period for questions and answers because we had a very long discussion about this at the last meeting. And if you want, you can go back and look at the recording of that meeting on the city website. And there'll be a link for that later on in the presentation. And then the crux of this, the bulk of this meeting is to talk about public participation and the potential benefits for this development. And I've allotted 30 minutes here, but I'm sure this can go longer than that. And then the second part of this would be the nominations for the ad hoc committee. And so with that, we'll just get moving here. So I want to talk about the community benefits ordinance. I'll go through the purpose, what public support, how that's defined and why we're here. This is our community participation meeting, and I'll get into what that is supposed to look like. And then there's certain information that needs to be shared that's required by the ordinance to be shared. Then I'll go through the particulars of the ad hoc committee, and then what the community benefits agreement, which is the deliverable from this whole process, needs to include. So in the city code, chapter 30, there's this ordinance, which is known as the community benefits ordinance, and it states that it shall be the policy of the city of Ypsilanti to require, wherever feasible, proportional community benefits as a condition of a significant public support for development in the form of subsidies, tax abatements, below market priced land, or other enhanced public resources. And below is the definition for public support, which is over $50,000. A financial incentive of over $50,000, or sale of publicly owned land for less than $10,000 below the market value. So here we are in the community participation meeting. And the point of this meeting is to inform the community about the project, and the developer, previously gave a presentation. But the other part of this is to allow the community to discuss potential community benefits. And we'll have time for questions, as I showed before. And then, time to discuss the potential benefits, and then nominations for the ad hoc committee. And then, there's just information here about how this, what information needs to be shared. This is subject to the Open Meetings Act, and the records are subject to FOIA. So the information to be shared is, the public support that has been asked for, and Joel will go into that a little bit later. We need to make available the city code, and this link will get you to that. And once this is posted on the website, you can get that information there. And then the request for public support is there, and then applications for being on the ad hoc committee, and there's the link for that. And again, those applications are due by 4 p.m. this Friday. So within 15 days of this meeting, there needs to be an ad hoc committee created that consists of one interested council member who is from the ward where the proposed development is, and 5 to 8 residents of the city of Ypsilanti. 3 of those members will come from the recommendations that we have tonight. And then there's the other 5 members can be from other pools. And then there's here, information on who would not be considered for this position if they have affiliations with the developer or are deemed not to be willing or able to fulfill the requirement. So the staff has certain roles here. The city manager will designate a staff liaison. The city attorney's office will be available to assist the committee. The staff liaison that's appointed will provide all the documentations within 48 hours of seating the committee. And then all other requests later on while the committee is meeting will be filled within 48 hours as well. So once the ad hoc committee is seated, it needs to meet at least twice within 60 days. And don't worry, I have a schedule at the end of this, what that looks like. Those meetings will need to be noticed 7 days in advance. And the purpose is to identify the community benefits. These need to be mutually agreed upon by the developer, and then make a recommendation to city council. So after 60 days, there needs to be a community benefits agreement, which is the deliverable. And then within 15 days after that is delivered to city council, then the developer has time to respond. So when the CBA is delivered, the city manager has the discretion to review that and go back to the committee for questions, or send it on to city council, and then city council is required to give final approval for the CBA. So these are the next 2 slides contain the minimum standards for the CBA. And I'll just leave this here for a moment. I won't go through all of these. But basically, it has to be legally enforceable. It has to have metrics that can be applied. And it has to reflect the scale and be in proportion to the public support that's being asked. So I want to highlight that. And so here, again, it talks more about the metrics that are involved and where you can find all of that. So there's 2 different tiers of projects that will trigger the community benefits ordinance. Tier 1 is triggered when there's a financial incentive in an amount of $50,000 or more and less than $250,000. Tier 2 is amount greater than $250,000 or in the form of sale or lease of city-owned land. So 945 Park is a Tier 2 project. So as we go through this, we'll look at those. And so there's a couple slides after this. The requirements are that in Tier 2, they must meet the minimum standards in the following slides, and then must comply with Tier 1 and Tier 2 benefits, which we'll show you next. So here are three categories for benefits under Tier 1. And I'll go through these briefly because the Tier 2 have to comply with all of these categories and 2 from Tier 2. So I'll just read these verbatim. Number 1 is providing either on-site or off-site additional recreational activities, parks, open space, public service enhancements, or public infrastructure improvements for the city of Ypsilanti and its residents. This includes public transportation services and infrastructure. 2, incorporation of green or sustainable energy elements in the project or the promotion of such investments throughout the city of Ypsilanti. And 3, unbundling of construction work into bid sizes that will allow local small businesses level competition without restricting the project timeline. Assistance with access to bonding, lending, insurance, access to capital, procurement, and other types of capacity-related assistance where necessary and when available. So here for the Tier 2, and remind you at the bottom that we need to meet all of the ones in the last slide and 2 from this tier. Number 1 is work with Michigan Works, the SBDC, and other similarly situated organizations to help provide training, development, and preparation for potential contractual and hiring opportunities for local small businesses, minority-owned business enterprises, women-owned business enterprises, and other relevant business organizations and chambers. Number 2, providing or supporting educational and or mentoring activities that provide or enhance employment opportunities for local residents and youth through the Ypsilanti Community Schools, Washtenaw Community College, or other educational programs. And number 3 is creation or financial support of either on-site or off-site mixed or low-income housing. So that is the crux of why we're here, number 3. But I wanted to go through these because we're going to get input from you guys on this later on, and I wanted to see this and spend a little more time on that. Okay, so then City Council's responsibilities. We need to hold a public hearing regarding the proposed CBA no less than 15 days prior to its consideration by City Council. At that point, we have the discretion to approve the community benefits agreement that provides for one or more community benefits not described in the ordinance in substitution of one or more of the community benefits that is so described. So City Council has the ability to add to that one way or the other or substitute. If exercising its discretion under this section, the City Council shall determine under which tier the alternative community benefits would qualify. City Council may accept, reject, or amend the proposed community benefits agreement by resolution. So, having said all that, the request for public support came in November of 2021. We had a previous community participation meeting, but because that didn't fully comply with the community benefits ordinance, we're having another one. So the timeline now that, all those timelines that were in the previous slides, this is what that looks like. So from this meeting going forward, we have until February 22nd for council to seat the ad hoc committee. And then by the 24th, the staff liaison would have to provide all the documentation to the committee. The ad hoc committee has to meet twice within 60 days, so that takes it out to April 23rd, and then the deadline for the development to deliver the response is May 8th. So the numbers at the end of this line in bold are, we have 15 days to seat the committee. But we have regularly scheduled council meetings on the 15th and on March 1st. And so we're setting this up so that we can get this on the agenda for next Tuesday to seat that committee. And then those other bold numbers follow in line with the timeline for that. Extensions are possible. The CBO has a provision for that by request of either the committee or by the developer, and by council as well. So, but then this is where the CBO is lacking. There's no timeline for when the city manager needs to do the review and remit to the committee for clarification. That wasn't stated in the ordinance. Also, there's no timeline or deadline stated for when city council deliberates, and we just have to work on the fact that there needs to be a hearing 15 days ahead of time, and that we don't want this to drag on. So. So with that, we can talk about the application for, and I will stop sharing here. Oh, actually, I need that back. Sorry. So I'll just say that the application, the online application has been open for 2 months already. We've decided to close that at the end of this week so that we can get that information to city council so that council can review that over the weekend and make a decision on who that is. I'm going to get to, so right here is the link to where that is located on the city website. And so we also have, for the people that are here in the Freight House, we have paper applications for that we can take. And we suggest that people log on and do this as well. And I've encouraged council members and anybody else that has somebody who's not at this meeting that would be interested in being on this committee to go there and fill out that application. And so with that, I'm going to hand this over to Joe so he can give a presentation of the development. And I'm sorry that was a little bit longer than I expected.
Well, I know how to do that. So, good evening, everyone. This is Joe Myers, the Director of Economic Development. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to give a brief presentation about the development. Kyle Brazer is on the call to answer any questions if anybody has any. If you would like a much more in detail presentation on this, it is on our website that was given last meeting. And so there's a very in-depth presentation. And so I'm going to give the very abbreviated version of it. So give me a second while I share my screen. The development is at 845 West Clark Road. It is located at the corner roughly of LaForge and Clark. It is showcased in the yellow border. This is essentially what the development is. It's split into two different sides. The senior side, which is on the right-hand side of your screen, it is one large building with approximately 150 units in it. That is the senior affordable side of the development. And then separated by Green Road, which will be a new road that will connect the Green Road, which is currently in the apartment complex next to it. It would be 154 family affordable housing units to the west side or left-hand side. So essentially, there's 6 buildings in the family affordable, 1 building in the senior affordable. All have rents. It's either 40 or 60% area median income. The majority of them are going to be at 60% area median income. The ranges, the rents range from $1,118 for a 1-bedroom to $1,541 for a 3-bedroom. The 40% area median income, which will be 10% of the units, range from $719 for a 1-bedroom up to $987 for a 3-bedroom. However, some of these numbers are in flux. The developer has already indicated that the 3-bedroom senior complexes, the market is not there for those, so those would be put into the 2-bedroom units. So some of these numbers are subject to change slightly. but the bottom line incentive will not change. So here is a visual of what it will look like compared to the developments next to it. As you can see, it's similar in scale to the developments to the south and east of this, maybe a little bit more dense. And then here's the unit breakdown. Like I said, some of these numbers are subject to change slightly. However, it won't change dramatically. It just depends on the site planning process. The total incentive amount, which is kind of dependent on the length of the affordability, but I believe it is about $24 million over 30 years. And the pilot, the request is for a 5% pilot, which would equate to roughly $220,000 a year for the city instead of the typical $1,050,000 in taxes. So that's kind of the brief overview of the development. We can answer many more questions, but like I said, we had a lot of direct questions about the development in the last time. This meeting, we wanted to make part of the community process. With that, I will send it back over to Steve.
All right. Am I still on here? Okay, cool. So we're going to get into the discussion part of this. And so part of the working through this community benefits ordinance, there are a number of things that are missing from the ordinance. And so there's no guidance in there on how this part of the meeting is to run. I know that people that were involved with creating the ordinance had certain ideas about how this should run. And that was all decided with the assumption that it was going to be a live in-person meeting. And so for the last couple of years, that hasn't been possible. We're working with technology here to make this as inclusive as possible. So what we've come up with is a way to, in Zoom and with folks here in the Freight House, we're going to be able to have a discussion and have input from you guys, but it can't be just an open discussion because of the technology and because we have the hybrid meeting. And so I'll bring up, I guess, Andrew, do you have the slides for this part of the meeting? And I'll go over briefly how this is going to work. But at this point, does anybody have any questions about the development? We have allotted 10 minutes for that. So if you have questions, you can raise your hand for that. Well, let's take the question from John Lusk here.
I got it. I'm unmuting people.
Thank you, Steve. Wondering two things. On the app, does it tell where we can email the filled out app? It's one question.
It's an online form. So you'll just
great.
fill out the form on the website. Yeah.
Okay. And my understanding is, unless it's been already settled, is that the Green Road extension belongs to the city. And I see that the plan sort of usurped the whole, that hunk of property that the city owns. Is that a done deal already?
I don't think that's that property, that part of it is not being sold, but the developer has included that in the plan for development to make it easier. Yep.
Sorry, so that piece of property is essentially part of the deal. However, because we're requiring the developer to extend Green Road, that's a requirement of the ordinance. And so we're still working out through all that and the ownership. It's going to go through the CBO process. It's going through it as is. But it's a right of way, so it's a weird part of the development. So city council would have to, sorry, John, city council would have to sign off on the sale of it. However, it is a right of way, so it's not quite the same.
But I thought they owned the property, like nobody pays taxes on it because the city owns it. Isn't that correct?
It is a city-owned piece of property currently, yes.
And so they'll be selling it, and will they put it up at auction to allow other people to buy it?
It would, we're still working out all the details. My guess is there would be an easement on the property to use it for the road and some parking.
Okay, so they wouldn't take ownership, they would simply take an easement. So the
There's-
city isn't going to sell it. That's all my question is.
The city
Okay.
isn't going to, the city is requiring the road to be built. So I don't see us stopping that.
Right, so it will belong to the city, but the developer will develop.
Okay,
We'll do
Thank
we'll
you.
do the paving, right?
yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Nope, not at this moment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, John. I see Lisa Volker has her hand up.
Hi there. Yeah, I just have a question about any environmental impacts or environmental assessment that's been done, given just that it's kind of proximity to the river and sort of, if I'm picturing it, it's off of Clark Road. And so the corner of Clark Road and LaForge. Am I picturing that right?
Correct, it's to the west of that.
Okay. So yeah, I just have a question about environmental impact information.
I can, would you like me to try?
Sure,
Councilmember
that'd be great.
Wilcoxon, on that? Okay, so, and I haven't introduced myself yet this evening, but thank you all for your time and your interest in this development project. My name is Kyle Brasser. I'm with Lincoln Avenue Capital, and we're the developer. Lisa, thank you for your question. Let me try to answer it in a couple different parts, and let me know if I'm
Okay.
leaving parts of it out. So, as regarding an environmental impact, there's multiple things to consider.
Mhm.
One is just, what is the environmental condition of the property? Is there contamination? Is there, are there things to be dealt with there? We have performed what's called an environmental site investigation, where we've taken a review of the site and have not determined, we have not come across any contamination at this point. There's some soil conditions, more like boulders and things like that need to be addressed during the construction process, more from a structural standpoint, but not from a contamination standpoint. However, there's an environmental engineer that is part of this process and will be involved during construction. So if something is encountered that wasn't originally found during our investigation, then that gets addressed in real time and would have input from the appropriate, in this instance, the appropriate body, which I apologize. I'm thinking it's the Department of it's not the EPA here, but it's like it's the Michigan DNR.
Oh, Eagle. Yeah.
Eagle, thank you, Eagle. Yep. And so so from that standpoint, from a contamination standpoint, we don't believe that there will be any site or soil contamination. And then, and was that what your question was related to?
Well, yeah, and I get, yes, I guess it was general. I also was wondering about the impact of an additional amount of impervious surface in that area.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not like a massive footprint, obviously, but just curious about that.
Yeah. Okay. So regarding that, we are engineering the treatment of stormwater, and by that I mean like the handling of stormwater that will come off of this site. So when it rains, where does that water go? Right
exactly.
now, there's nothing built there, and so theoretically everything sort of soaks into the ground when it rains. Doesn't exactly work like that, but we are going to be developing a couple different facets of this that will address stormwater specifically. One is we're going to be putting what's called an underground detention tank that has like a delayed release on it. So underneath a portion of the surface parking lot where the family buildings are being constructed, there will be drains that lead to an underground storage tank that will temporarily capture the storm water in there and then release it at a controlled rate so that it's not just surface draining off of our property. We're also creating a couple of above ground stormwater detention ponds on the southern portion of the site. So the grade of the site slopes generally from like Clark Road, which is north, kind of back south and west towards the river. So on the southwest portion of both sites, we are developing stormwater retention basins as well to capture stormwater that will run off. So with those two, the underground tank and the above ground basins, and when I say basin, just think of a pond that'll have some landscaping, around it and things like that. We are addressing the stormwater needs of the site, and frankly going above and beyond the absolute minimum too. So
Okay.
we're working with our civil engineer on that. That's the plan.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Lucy. I see Rod Casey has his hand up.
Sorry, Rod.
Welcome, Rod. You'll have to unmute yourself as well.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Good, good. Thank you, Lisa, for bringing that issue up. Rod Casey, Ypsilanti Township Democratic Delegate. And my concern is the PFA that's coming into the river. And I wanted to know if that is taking in consideration filters to avoid cutting it down or cutting it off completely.
I'm not
Thanks
sure I
for
got the beginning of the question. Did you get that, Kyle?
no, I did not.
Casey, Rod,
Kyle,
can you?
I'll repeat it. Kyle, are you taking in consideration of the PFA that's coming into the river that we want to clean out already? Are you considering having filters?
Oh, the PFAS.
Oh, PFAS. Well, so maybe there's more of a discussion to have here, but based on our investigation of this site, we don't have PFAS contamination on the site. So that's not something that I thought we needed to address. If there's a larger issue outside of our site, typically we address what our development kind of creates and impacts. So if we were impacting groundwater, for example, by the leaching of PFAS related chemicals, then we would need to address that. But according to the review that we've taken place such far and input from MISHDA and Eagle through them, we don't have a PFAS contamination issue on our site.
Okay, well, the thing is that PFAS could also be created by humans just as well. And I just wanted to know if this here property is going to be able to protect the river, from this,
PFAS.
I just want to know,
PFAS is typically generated from certain chemicals like, fireproofing, right, or other chemicals that are often it's in like fire retardant type of testing that takes place. We won't be using any of those chemicals. I don't even think they're allowed. But we certainly won't be using any PFAS creating chemicals. There's a pretty fine microscope right now over what kinds of things you can use, and this will be an environmentally conscientious development, and definitely we won't be using chemicals that would add contamination.
Well, I'm not saying y'all, I'm saying the residents themselves, okay? Because they can get it just right off of their pots and pans. And
Right.
I'm asking, would you have some kind of filtration system in the apartment complex that can prevent this from getting into our drinking water or into the river? And if not, would you please make that a part of the conversation?
Sure. I'd be happy to talk about that more later. I'm not familiar with a filtration system like that exists, but any multifamily development that has professional management company like this one will have certain rules and regulations for what residents can and can't do. Further than that, I'm not familiar with what could be done in that regard, but I'm happy to talk more about it.
Right. Well, I'm talking about a preventive measure.
Sure.
Okay.
All right.
That's
So
what I'm
Rod,
talking about.
I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about PFAS. The things that are going down the drains in these units would be going through the wastewater treatment. And there are things that can be done there, but I don't see that the development itself or the daily lives of the people there are going to contribute. Most of the PFAS in our water systems are from industrial sites that either make them or use them, or as Kyle had said, from the use of some of the firefighting foams, which is prevalent in northern Michigan from the Air Force bases. But I'd be happy to have a conversation with you at another time.
Okay,
Okay.
that'll work.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
I see Kate Levin has her hand up, and I think we're going to limit this to the end of these questions for now. And if you have any other questions, my contact information is on the website. I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Any other questions? So if we can get Kate on.
Hi. I had two questions. One is, has City Council and the whole process of this development already been approved, or where do we stand on that? And then the other question is, this piece of land, the Sustainability Commission identified on one of its maps in its plan as being one of the most highly biodiverse areas of the city. And in the plan, it was discussed that these areas of the city that have the highest biodiversity should be protected. So I'm wondering if there's been anything done to assess all the different species in this area. In
Okay,
case.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Did you have more to that question? So to address the whether council has approved this or not, this is what this process is about. Because they've asked for a pilot program in which they would get significant reductions in the amount of taxes, this is going through the CBO. And so in the timeline that I presented earlier, council won't deliberate on this until May. And so this whole process we have to go through this process, and then council will get that. In terms of whether the biodiversity has been assessed, this is private property. This isn't city-owned property. So, the owner has made an agreement or, is in negotiations with the developer, and the city doesn't have any input into that at this point. And so that's a good question. I know that we've got some wildlife biologists here on this meeting who live near there, and I'm not sure that study has been done at this point, but that's a really good point.
Can I clarify one other thing, council member, on the schedule?
Sure.
The question about council acting. I just want people to understand there's two different processes going on right now. One is this community benefits ordinance process where we've requested a financial incentive. Another one is what I would describe as more of the land use process. So planning commission and what some people refer to as the entitlements, the right to develop the land. And those two processes are running simultaneously right now, but they both lead to the development. So one, I described last meeting that this development isn't feasible without the financial incentive that we've requested, but I want people to be aware that we will have a planning commission meeting. It's actually the first one is next week. And then a month later, it goes to city council for the planning piece, but not the pilot piece. And I just want people to understand that so there's not confusion when you see other public meetings coming up. And Councilmember Wilcoxon, feel free to elaborate on that, but I just wanted to make sure people know that so we don't say, yeah, this still has to go in front of council. And then in 40 days, it's in front of city council for the planning piece, but not the pilot piece. I just want that to be clear.
All right. Thanks for that clarification. All right. At this point, I'd like to get the next set of slides that Andrew has up on there so we can start the discussion on both the benefits and on the ad hoc committee composition. All right, if we can make that bigger. So at this point, we're going to go into the benefits discussion. And so that is the second item on what that's supposed to be happening at this meeting. So for this, we're going to input for the discussion. This will be recorded to inform the ad hoc committee that is formed and city council and later decisions. This is going to go by the rules of brainstorming, in which, you know, we ask that people respect all viewpoints and ideas. Don't shoot them down or criticize them. If you have ideas to share, that's great, but don't criticize other people's viewpoints. We'll go through this in the tiers. So what we'll have coming after this is the thing to remember is that the benefits that I went through before, we need to meet all 3 of the categories from tier 1, and we need to meet 2 of the 3 categories from tier 2. So what we'll do is brainstorming here to add specific ideas to the list for each category, which will be projected on the screen, and we'll be taking notes from that. When we've got a number of ideas up there, we'll do straw polling, and the way that's going to work is that electronically, after the list is generated, each person can designate 3 priorities out of each of those categories. And for the in-person people, the people here at the Freight House, we have forms that are at the table with the sign-in sheets, and it has a list of what those categories are, and then they'll be able to designate 3 priorities for each category. So does anybody have any questions about that? You can come up to the.
And these sort of address some of the issues that were raised. Closer? Is it working now? Okay, good. My name's George Hagenauer. I live in Ypsilanti, the city on Grove Street. There are a number of issues I think raised in the last meeting. One is, I think, the perennial discussion of cost of any type of development. And I asked an engineer on our block to basically look at that, and unfortunately he's in under surgery too. But I think it would be very useful as part of the public discussion to sort of look at comparative developments in Ann Arbor, other areas during the past year or two, because obviously we've seen massive increases in construction costs. Just to address that, because it's apples and oranges, if I say my house is X amount of dollars per square foot, and you're saying, oh, we're building for twice that. So I think that'd be useful. More critical question, I think, if we're dealing with low-income housing or issues of poverty, is what scales we use. And people are arguing a lot about the median income scale. I worked for 50 years on poverty issues in a wide range of places. I did a lot in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a very similar situation to what we have here in terms of the fact that Ann Arbor's over there, Ypsi's over here. We had a similar type of thing. We're dealing with really varying different costs in various types of neighborhoods and communities. What we found to be most useful was using a self-sufficiency wage as opposed to what is normally used in poverty discussions. And the self-sufficiency wage is actually based on an annual basis on the actual cost of living for someone to be self-sufficient and free of any types of government subsidies. The United Way does that for Washtenaw County. Modifying that for Ypsilanti would be relatively easy, because if you look at like their Ann Arbor data and you look at Ypsi data, the major variation is going to be housing costs. So I think if you're going to actually be addressing poverty and addressing low income, you're far better working from that says, where are you on a scale to becoming self-sufficient and able to support yourself? And it includes actually money for, you know, the bank for future problems. So it's not just bare bones, it's actually a real cost of living. And use that in a lot of your discussions in terms of how you determine what's low-income housing, what's affordable, and what's not, and whatever other areas you're dealing with. So that's just a suggestion from my personal experience.
Great. Thanks, George. I'd like to have a conversation outside of this. I know there were a lot of people that brought up the actual affordability and the AMI that would be used by the developer. And so that will be, I'm sure, in future discussions on this
Yeah,
development.
the
as well.
way we used it was looking carefully at cost of living versus state copay formulas and other types of formulas. Because what we found was that by using state or broader medians, you basically had a situation where people had higher copays than they could afford to pay because the median was so much lower than the actual cost of living. So what was useful on that was we were able to develop then community-based strategies to try to supplement that through charitable payments of the copay or other types of subsidies to make the system work. So we were able to draw down the maximum amount of state or federal money, while at the same point making sure that people didn't continually go into crises, because we were seeing basically low-income families who were working their way up and then crashing because of the way the formulas work.
I hope I'm not interrupting. Is the city frozen or am I frozen? Looks like maybe the city was frozen. If people are wondering what's going on, sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm going to send a couple messages and see if we can figure out what's going on. Thanks for your patience. Okay, everybody, just an update. Looks like they gave me the host position, which means I think they're just rebooting their computer. So again, sorry about the technical difficulties. Be back in a minute. There we go. Councilmember Wilcoxon, I think you're on mute if you're talking.
Yeah, well,
Internet went down. Oh, Joe, I can hear you.
all right, there we go.
If you can hear us, yeah, sorry about that. I'm happy no one else got booted except for us. We're gonna try to get back on, but we're using mobile hotspots at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just us. Everybody's still there, so that's good. All right, thank you, folks, for being around.
Maybe a phone charger. Look at that.
You could go over to the bell. Oh, I think it'd be mine. You want to talk?
Sure. So if we're set, we're working off of hotspots from phones because the internet at the Great House went down unexpectedly and unexplainedly. So we're not sure what happened here. But what we want to do is share the screen so that we can have the list of the tier 1 categories up, and then we can have input from people here at the Great House and in Zoom as to what they think would be reasonable details for these benefits. And I can't control any of this. So we just need to share the screen and get the PowerPoint back up. Okay. So we can set that so that we can just look at one thing and we can do that. Oh, really? No kidding. Okay, then. All right, so you can edit this as we go. All right, so. All right, so at this point, we've got this editable, you folks can see it. Here are the list of benefit categories for tier 1. And remember that we need to meet all of these, because of this is a tier 2 project, we need to meet all of these categories in tier 1. And so I'd like to open it up for discussion from the audience in terms of brainstorming for ideas that we can get into category 1, providing either on-site or off-site additional recreational activities, parks, open space, public service enhancements, or public infrastructure improvements for the city of Ypsilanti's residents. This includes public transportation services and infrastructure. And so I'd like to get input here. I'm sure Kyle and the developing firm will have a list of things that they think are reasonable and feasible to do this. And at this point, I just want to get input from the community on and ideas for parks, open spaces, and other infrastructure. Desiree, how are you tonight? You can unmute yourself.
Hello, am I unmuted? Okay.
You are.
Hello, good evening. So one thought that I have for this area in terms of thinking about public infrastructure improvements and also overlaps with park is around bathrooms for the park. Yeah, I'll just say one thing at a time. Thank you. Oh, well, no, I'll say two now since I already am unmuted. The other thing I'd say for this area, in terms of, it's also both public infrastructure and also around transportation, is also thinking about definitely some pedestrian crossings that are more permanent and add to, both for pedestrian and bike access in the area and leading to the area.
So where are you talking about the pedestrian crossing?
I'm not saying a specific place. I just know that the city needs better infrastructure around pedestrian crossing. So I'm just thinking in terms of thinking about other infrastructure improvements to consider and look at.
Thank you. Susan S. Where'd you go? Susan, you seem to have disappeared. Is there anybody else that has ideas for the recreational activities or infrastructure? Alice.
Hello, hopefully you can hear me.
I can hear you now, thanks.
Great. I think it would be great if a bus, I believe there's already a bus stop there, but or like nearby. If there isn't, I just think that would be great to advocate for with AATA. I know they're having a lot of issues with staffing and so on, but I think the more public transportation, the better. And that's an area that I think is already pretty heavily used by residents because there's a lot of apartments near there. That's all.
Well, thank you. Jesse Miller.
Hi, thank you. I would like to reiterate that.
I kind of need you right?
Yeah, I might be, I might have some opinions on that.
Yeah.
And if there, and that it be like a nice, that be a covered shelter and all that. I guess I actually kind of had a question, because of the location, it's hard. I might lack imagination, but I'm having a hard time coming up with the things that could benefit like the city. I can think of nice things for the development, of course, but I'm wondering if the developer has any ideas themselves for what did you have in mind?
Well, I just want to point out here, Jesse, that the beginning of this says either on-site or offsite. So if
Right.
there's anything that you think would be benefit other places, because I want to reiterate that this is supposed to be proportional to the benefit that they're getting, right?
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't necessarily have to tie in
doesn't have to
with the development itself.
Right, it could be offsite.
Okay, thank you.
Next we have Amber.
Hi, yes, Amber from Ward 3. I'm looking at the ordinance and I just want to, let me take a look again. Want to bring up that, I'm just wondering why it's being structured that we're going to talking line item down these two tiers, because in the ordinance, it says it's a non-exhaustive list. So we're supposed to be able to talk about any possible benefits that we may be interested in and have, a discussion about it.
Sure, this is just a way to organize it. If you have something that doesn't fit into these categories, and it also says that at some point council can substitute things and create other things as well. And so if you have something that doesn't fit into this category, then we can certainly take that down as well.
Okay, yeah, I think that just might free up, people that might need to leave earlier or what have you. So hopefully we can talk about some of the benefits that we might want as a group, and then get to the portion where we actually talk about potential people to be on that committee to represent this process.
Right,
so
that's scheduled for. So, yeah.
Yeah, so then I will just talk about a couple things. I just wanted to raise up that the community benefits ordinance has passed its sunset clause, so it needs to be renewed. And as Steve Wilcoxon has already pointed out, there's a couple things that need to be improved that are unclear. And I think the most important one is that the language in the ordinance doesn't make the nomination process clear. And the intent of that nomination process when the law was being made was to bring more voices and people from the community, like residents in the community, to the table to actually negotiate what our community benefits with the developer. And so it really is supposed to be a counterbalance to kind of current status quo processes. And so I just want to encourage council to renew this ordinance and to improve upon it, so we can make sure we have a kind of voting process that is clear, that is community driven. The other thing is the AMI, and we're going to talk about this a lot, I'm sure, but so the development is kind of being described as an affordable housing development. And so my main concern is like, affordable for whom? This development needs to be affordable for people that live here. So Washtenaw County's area median income is $75,000 compared with Ypsi's area median income, which is $39,000. So it's almost half. So with that information, Washtenaw County does not reflect Ypsilanti and cannot be used as a determination of what affordable housing is. George Hagenauer brought up one example of an alternative way to determine affordability. But another one that's kind of arising is I think something that I hadn't heard before tonight, but it's called small area median income. And so I think maybe looking into what that is a little bit more to see how to change this standard so it actually is affordable to Ypsilantians. And I just want to bring up one thing that the Mayor Alan Richardson has said a couple times in the past, which is when there was other affordable housing developments on the table, which is that firefighters in Ypsi couldn't afford to live at those affordable housing developments based on their income. And if the firefighters in Ypsi and the city staff in Ypsi cannot afford it, then it's not affordable to Ypsilantians. I just think that's a strong point. And then I guess I'll just finish with potential benefits. So a higher percentage of lower cost affordable units at 40%, 60%, and 80% of the Ypsi's area median income, not Washtenaw County. And this one I'm very committed to, which is to get the developer to commit to a 99-year promise to keep it affordable. That was what Cross Street Village had as a standard that they reneged on, but a 99-year promise to keep it affordable so it's worth it for the amount of tax subsidy. Another one is, I'm not an expert on this, but some sort of preservation of natural carbon sinks and wildlife habitats, should there be certain wildlife there. And I know that we have standards in Ypsi around prevailing wage, and I just want to make sure that the contracts for labor are as much as possible used with local labor contractors.
Okay, so we're kind of all over the place with this. So the tier 2, the change of the metrics for the affordability, you and George both brought that up, and Joe has put that in the tier 2. In terms of carbon capture, we can take that down, but it's not clear how it fits into this tier system, but that's all right. It doesn't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. So just the main thing I want to stress is the 99-year promise and the AMI.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Ashley Fox.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I think I would go ahead and voice and kind of echo some of what I've heard from other commenters. I totally understand that for the developer, they've got to figure out how to make all the numbers work for it to be something that's profitable that they'll actually go and build. But I do share the concerns about where do we go ahead and decide where AMI is set and for whom, as well as whatever permanence there might be to, I understand we can't say forever, but what level of permanence can we assure that the city's investment would end up bringing about the long-term benefits that they were looking for. As far as for this item specifically, talking about space and connection to recreation and so forth, this is one of the few undeveloped properties that's along the river. I understand that it's not. I'm seeing, looking at the map of the area, I see that it's not actually adjoining Peninsular Park. But as far as giving the community access to the river, if there was any way to either make sure this development's connecting with the riverfront, or if there was some way to connect this property through to Peninsular Park, I think that would definitely be a benefit for the community. The more that we can have community focus that goes towards the river and connects people to these sort of recreational spaces, I think the better off we are as a community. So I think that I don't know whether such things are possible, given that we have another adjoining private property between this development and the park. I'm not sure what level the city controls any sort of right of way or easement along the river. But any way that we could be trying to encourage that connection to the river and connection to those recreational facilities like the nearby Peninsular Park, I think would be worthwhile to explore.
Thank you, Ashley. Next, we have John Lusk.
Thanks, Steve. Hope I'm coming through.
Yep.
A quick comment on the last item. I have walked that area because it's next door to me, of course. I'm 27 feet above the river, and that's covered in about 10 feet. So we're looking at an incredibly steep bank. Even stairways would be an incredible stairway. So I don't think it's really reasonable to assume that that property can get down to the river in anything that's reasonable. It's very steep and quite bad. Now, the next item is, how could they help us? They could build the Amtrak depot that all of a sudden had to disappear because of budget crunches and everything else. So I would put on there, build the Amtrak depot. That would really I think that would really help Ypsi to have an Amtrak depot. And I was a big supporter of it. And I think, Steve, you were too. So, okay, we're giving them 24 million. They can build us a depot. So thank you.
Thanks, John. Next, we have David Reynolds.
Hi, good evening. So I'm going to echo the affordability concerns and then add one other. So obviously the developer has to make the numbers work, but I think it's a question, is this 60%, 1,100, is that impacting affordability in Ypsi or not? And if it's not, then, you know, having 31 units that are at 40%, is that enough for the 24 million? So I think there can be a whole discussion about that. How much affordability can you deliver and what levels work, even if it means maybe some of these are more expensive. The other point is, I think there's an opportunity here to model good landlord-tenant relations. Certainly I've been at city council meetings where we've seen examples of poor relations. So I think that a cost-free thing that could be done on this development would be instituting a tenants council, or I'm sure their tenant groups have various models, so that there is, residents have an opportunity to be organized and, have a kind of a collective voice and input with the management company. So if there's issues or just, both positive and negative, we're modeling kind of good practices.
Great, thank you. You got that, Joe? All right. Next up, we have Alice.
Hi, sorry, I'm back. Now that I feel like Amber has expanded the realm of possibilities for what can go on here, I feel more equipped to say things. Just yet another voice, sort of echoing the concerns around affordability. Right now, as people here may or may not know, the AMI is based on the county's median income, not Ypsi. So the AMI is skewed toward higher incomes, does not reflect the actual incomes of Ypsilanti residents. If this is supposed to be affordable, as Mayor Richardson said, like if the firefighters can't afford to live in Ypsi, then that is not an affordable house. I don't really understand why this is still like an issue. Why we're still having this discussion. That makes no sense to me. Another thing that I think would be a great public infrastructure enhancement would be more accountability around things like sidewalk clearing and things that are going to make it easier for people with disabilities and just general living conditions. Many of us have lived at places where landlords do not clear the sidewalks in time, and you end up with cars stuck in driveways. You end up with people who need to get to the bus, who can't get to the bus to get to work. That goes to the person who previously spoke about improving landlord-tenant relationships. There's there aren't, those don't really exist in Ypsilanti right now because most of us just live in slumlord housing. And so being able to live not only in an affordable house, but a house where you can feel confident that your maintenance requests will be answered, I think would be great. I don't know of a way to do that because there's not a lot of accountability for landlords locally, but if we're brainstorming, that's a thing that I want to be on there. I'm
Is
still a
that
little
something you also
skeptical.
want?
Okay.
Sorry, I did to interrupt, but is that something you want to have it be just on site there or off site as well?
I mean, I think I'm not sure what offsite, you mean offsite like beyond just this development? I thought this was just about this specific development. Sorry, I don't
Well,
understand.
at the beginning of the tier 1, it says that these infrastructure and
Oh.
public services can be either on site or off site.
Hell yeah, let's do it offsite. Let's do it for the whole city. Like, landlords need to be accountable in this whole city. But one other thing that I was thinking about was, as folks have mentioned, this is being built by the river. The river impacts everybody in the city, but there's going to be a lot of people that are affected more than others. Things like rain gardens and other mitigation strategies to help mitigate the impact of a new development by this river, I think would be great. Those can also mitigate a lot of the erosion that is happening from this giant hill that now has a development on it. There's a lot of great grant fundings for that are not like that hard to get, that I think would be a great thing for that development. Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Can can I expand that instead of just having rain gardens to having green infrastructure for stormwater retention? No, gone.
Yes, sorry, that's what the thumb was for.
Okay, cool, thanks. And next we have Lisa again.
Hi again, thanks. I definitely want to just emphasize the green infrastructure. I was going to share that too, rain gardens or other mitigation possibilities. And I also wonder about if that is possible, but maybe only possible in a small part of the development, if the developers would be, I don't know if this is something that they can answer, willing to entertain it as a demonstration site. So that other places in the city or future developments could riff off of it or see it, or like I work with students and I'm thinking about families and students that live in the city, and demonstration sites that are accessible would be wonderful. And the only other thing that I wanted to bring up was, I'm not sure how this affects the city, because in terms of labor force, it might end up, I might have some blind spots, but one benefit to the city that I could really see is trash, more trash receptacles and more just general kind of like encouragement and accessibility to contain the trash that's all around. So obviously my expectation is not the whole city, but even if it was like Peninsular Park, let's say there was a benefit there, what would that look like if there was a better waste system and a trash collection system there? That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lisa. We have a person here in the Freight House that we're going to go to next, and then I see Brian and Desiree and Kate again, and we'll come back to that. So if you could give us your name. We're going to get you another mic.
Thank you. This is Tegwin John. I would like to echo and amplify a lot of the things that have already been said by other commenters, particularly Amber Fellows and Alice. It is bizarre to me that this development is coming to the city of Ypsilanti, claiming to be affordable, looking for tax breaks and benefits from Ypsilanti taxpayers, while basing their claims of affordability on data which includes the city of Ann Arbor, which includes one of like the wealthiest zip codes in the state of Michigan. This would be affordable if it were in Ann Arbor or perhaps even Dexter or Saline, but it's not affordable to Ypsilanti residents. So they are attempting to scam us by asking for our tax money. That's my understanding of the situation. So if they were going to be providing a community benefit of affordable housing, it would need to be based on affordability within the city of Ypsilanti, the tax jurisdiction which they are seeking to take our money from. Also, if this site were to be developed, echoing what other commenters said, this is one of the last undeveloped sites along the river. If the banks are very steep, that would not allow a park such as Riverside or Frog Island. Perhaps there could be a boardwalk constructed. I've seen boardwalks in steep river areas in places in Ann Arbor and other places that would be really wonderful for allowing other community members to access the river and increase the relationship that Ypsilanti has with the Huron River, which is a beautiful place. I would also like to see potentially funding going towards sidewalks off-site and other places in Ypsi. Definitely stormwater retention, perhaps tree plant.
I just lost the volume on my end. I'm not sure if others did. I can't hear anymore.
Okay, we're gonna check this on the mic.
How about now?
That's a little better, yeah.
Yep, I can hear you.
What's the last thing you guys heard?
Off-site sidewalks was the last piece you were talking through.
Thank you. Yeah, off-site
And
sidewalks, rainwater retention, stormwater retention, the planting of more trees throughout the city of Ypsilanti off-site, because this is a large wooded area that would be deforested. I would love to see
I'm sorry, it's happening again. I lost you after more trees.
more sidewalk trees and street trees, and I will. Thank you.
Can't hear it now.
Hello? Okay. I will wrap up my comment now and just thank all of the other participants in this call and in this community benefits process. I'm excited to see what happens because it's our city.
Thank you very much. Seeing no one else in the Freight House, I'm going to go with Brian Geringer. Hey, Brian.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, so thanks for everyone's amazing comments so far. This has been really exciting and great. I want to lift up basically everything anyone said, but also I want to put extra emphasis on the ideas of working toward like greater accountability for landlords and possibly a tenant union. And I think that's something that's desperately needed throughout the city. So maybe that could be somehow contributed to by the developers. And also, I just want to mention that it's really important that that is something that the tenants would have independent control of. A couple other things just to put on the list. Folks have been asking for public kiosks that can be flyered on and have like information sharing on for a while. Funds toward a grocery store, public grocery store would be great. And yeah, a lot of these things would be great. I love that we're, naming a lot of things. I do also just want to briefly bring up that uh, almost everyone who's been commenting here, including me, is white. And this is the part of town with the greatest like proportion of black residents other than the South Side. And none of them are here. Which, I know public participation is really hard, but I just want to point that out as we think about the CBO going forward and how, it was written with the intention to get local residents involved, and that's an ongoing process to try to get that right, but
Right.
it's not enough at this point.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian. Desiree, you're up next. We've got two more people, Desiree and Kate Levin. I don't see any other hands raised, and I want to get kind of through this. We have a small list here, and so I think we may change how this works out, but we need to get to the point where we get nominations and recommendations for people on the committee. So we'll take these two next people, and then we'll switch over to the committee recommendations.
Great.
Hi, Desiree.
Hello. Yeah, so now that we're not going piece by piece, I did have a couple of other things I wanted to mention for the list. One is thinking about whether it's a pilot or something toward recycling for multi-unit apartments, of which this would also be. We currently don't have recycling pickups for that. And so that would be something to consider. Another thing that I would say is another thing that we've been working on in the Sustainability Commission is resiliency hubs, which would be, which we're looking at co-locating within some of our major parks. So Park Ridge is already in process, but this would also, I would also see Riverside, Prospect, maybe some other ones too, that we would have for supplies and things for emergency and climate response, but also could be spaces, for instance, for things like tool checkouts or things like that that the community could use in different ways. So thinking about how we could have these hubs. So that would be something I would think. And then another thing, as we've been talking about housing, I also just want to name that the city does have a housing trust fund, which can help support the city to acquire land like they did on Washington Street and things of that sort. So also making a contribution to the housing trust fund would be something else I want to add to the list. And I think a lot of the other things I would have thought about are on there. I think there were some things around, solar and things that maybe things that, also I think I see that as being connected with resiliency hubs too, having those be solarized so that could be an energy source. So yeah, thank you.
Right. So Desiree, we're having a hard time hearing you here, and we've been hearing other people as well. So I'm just going to kind of go with the notes that I've got. So you had recycling for multi-units, resiliency hubs, housing trust fund, and then solarization for the resilience hubs. Was there anything besides that? Oh, there you go.
Oh, thank you. I was just saying, yeah, I was thinking about it with resiliency hubs. It also could be at the kiosks. I think just like thinking about where we can have some solar energy and maybe, some storage or something that people will be able to use for energy in case of outages,
Mhm.
and things of that sort.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. And last, we have Kate Levin.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, thank you. As far as the project itself, the Washtenaw County Water Resources Council has a very high standards for building retention basins, and I would really like to see the project use those standards. I don't have enough technical expertise to be able to compare, but I know that those are really great standards, and the Huron River Water Council really likes those standards. And then for the trees and the landscaping, I think it would be great to have a local native plants businesses. There's probably a lot of small, like individuals locally that would have small businesses who would do that. And I think it's really important to make sure that whatever is put in the landscape is not invasive and is native plants, both in the project, and I think it would be great to have that expanded to doing some more native plant landscaping in our parks. Then moving away from the green infrastructure, I saw on the other tiers services were listed, and I think having an expanded visiting nurse program, if there already is one, or if there isn't, establishing visiting nurse programs. Our city really needs good quality health care. So that would be great if it was already funded so that it was free to people who needed it to be free, would be great. And I also saw on some of the other tiers, summer jobs for youth and training programs. That would be great, especially working with local businesses, so relationships could be already established, so that could perhaps then continue on after a training program or a summer job had ended, like the relationship between the business and the young people. And an insulation program for residents to help bring down the footprint, because that is very effective, and it's not as flashy as solar, but it can be really helpful, but it's expensive. So I think that's it for me. Thank you.
No, thank you, Kate. And I did see one other person had their hand up and then they went away. And is she still there? If you want to raise your hand again, you can do that. All right, we're at 8:40. We've allotted 2 hours for this. The ordinance does not dictate the timeline on this, but the last time we kind of ran up at people's patience by going that long to begin with. So what I'd like to do now is, we've got all these, they don't fit into the categories very well. We had talked about having a straw poll within these categories and doing that. At this point, with our note taking, it's going to be kind of, that would be very hard to do. And so the point here is that these are all feeding into the ad hoc committee and to council to think about. The prioritization we were going to do with the straw polls wouldn't eliminate any things. All these would be captured and put out there, but we're trying to get a sense of what people had as a priority. And I think by the number of comments that were similar, we've got that idea thus far. So at this point, I'd like to transition over to conversation about the makeup of the ad hoc committee. So if we could get that onto the screen here, so we could open up that set of nominations or recommendations rather. because this is, I say nominations, but this isn't really a nomination and approval kind of thing. But, if people put their name out here, it will be considered. So it's just names at the end of that last one. Right?
Oh, okay.
Steve, I should raise.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Sorry. Forgive me if you said this earlier on. Can you just say one or two more sentences about the committee, the expectation? I know it's very short term.
Sure. So the ad hoc committee is the ordinance states that this will be 3 people that are discussed at this meeting.
Okay.
Then with a total of 5 to 8 people that city council can appoint as well. And so we have an application, an online application. In my previous presentation, there's a link to that, and it's on the city website. So people can fill that out. That is going to be closed on February 4th, February 11th at 4 p.m. So it's been open for a couple months. We're going to leave it open till the end of this week, and then that application information will be sent to city council to deliberate on next Tuesday at our regular meeting. And at that point, then we would seat people there. So what we need to come up with here is a list of people that are, people who volunteer who are willing to do this. And then, we can prioritize those people, or we can just take those names and go from there. So there have been 4 people that have already filled out the application. And I don't have those names now. I know who a couple of people are, but Joe has those. So
Thank you very much.
So the 4 people that have applied so far are Amber Fellows, Alyssa Newsom, Desiree Simmons, and Kara Landstrom. I'm sorry if I said any of those names wrong. So I'm going to type those names in, and then for the 2 people left here in the building, please feel free to apply. And anyone who wants to apply virtually, go to cityofypsilanti.com/CBO. That'll take you right to the page where you can apply. And then Steve, I'll send it over to you to discuss how we move forward from here. I'm going to type those 4 names on here right now.
okay, so at this point, we're going to open this up to discussion here, and I see the 2 people who have their hands raised. You can suggest other people or yourself at this point, and then we can try to do the straw poll with this. It's a little bit easier than with the benefits that we had listed before. So Amber, you're first on the list here.
Hi, yes, I would like to withdraw my name from this list. I applied at the last meeting because I felt that there was going to be no one interested in the committee. And I don't think that's the case. It seems like there's some people tonight. I think the conversation's been really good. A lot of amazing potential benefits have been brought up. So yeah, I want to support others in going on the committee. I just wanted to clarify though, because you talked about, we could have discussion and hopefully come up with some straw poll to indicate who the community is, showing general support towards to be on this committee. So I just wanted to clarify how that's going to go.
Sure. So we have the ability here to, for those of you that are on Zoom, to do a straw poll. After we get a list of names here, then people can designate 3 out of that list that they'd like to see on there. And again, this is to inform council when we deliberate next Tuesday on that. And so if we come up with the priorities from this, that will be accounted for or relayed to council next Tuesday for that. And then for the people here in the Freight House, we have paper forms here that can be used to designate the 3 priority people out of the list that we generate here. So, Brian, you are up next.
Uh, Hi.
Hi.
Sorry, I'm still just trying to understand because, yeah, my understanding of the CBO is that at this meeting, we will, as a group, choose the folks that we want to nominate. So I'm just a little confused about the like idea of there still being an open uh, online way to nominate yourself after the meeting because uh, the way I understand the CBO is that like it might be that at this meeting we decide to only put up 3 people, so that means council has to put all 3 of them on if we wanted to, or we could choose more and let council sort of choose among them.
Right. I think this is one of those places where the CBO doesn't specify the procedure at this point in the meeting. And we talked about this in an outside meeting, but I don't think that's stipulated in the ordinance at all. So as we said, you know, we can prioritize these, and if somebody wants to put their name in, then that has to be considered. But what it says is 3 people who are recommended at this meeting need to be put on there, but it doesn't say what the recommendation process is. And so that's why that's open to interpretation. So we're just trying to be as general as possible with that. But with the straw poll, we get the sense of what people think at this meeting, and that will inform council when they do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I'm hearing what my understanding is right, that at least 3 people from this meeting will be put on, and then if people want to nominate themselves, they can be sort of considered by council also. And if that's the case, that makes total sense. Thank you.
Sure. Do you have somebody that you would like to nominate or put into the conversation?
No.
Are you volunteering, Brian?
No, thank you. For
next is John, who I know has expressed interest in being on this committee.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, I would like to go on the committee. I mean, I'm next door neighbor. The only, take the H out of John if you would. Might as well spell it right. I'll back up there. One more. Perfect.
There we go.
And I've served on 2 city committees. I've been a Ypsilanti resident for over 30 years. So involved and concerned and want this to come out right. I'm also a member of the Friends of Penn Park, who clean up the park on an annual basis, pick up the trash. So I am familiar with the whole area as well. And I think it would be an asset, hopefully, to this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, John. So at this point, we have 4 names. I would encourage anybody at the, is there anybody at the Freight House that wants to put anybody else in? Oh, awesome. Do you want to come to the microphone for that?
Tegwin John. I'm throwing my name into the hat if that's what the community wants. Okay. TEGWYN. My last name is John, spelled like his is not. JOHN.
All right. So we have a volunteer from the Freight House. Lisa Volker. How are you doing?
Good. I'll volunteer. I can do the go online and fill out the application.
Excellent. Next, we have Desiree Simmons. And there we go.
I'm sorry. I'd like to nominate.
Desiree, can you please speak into your microphone? We cannot hear you in the building. And so if you could just speak a little clearly in there, I'd appreciate it.
Great. I'd like to nominate Alice.
What's Alice's last name?
I think Alice E is on here.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like, well, actually, yeah.
She's actually up next. So let me, all right, thank you. And Alice, you're up.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Desiree. Yeah, my last name is Elliott, Elliott. Thanks for the nomination.
And David Reynolds.
So I'm not nominating myself for anybody, but I just wanted to make sure, are people going to have a chance like John did of just saying a little bit about himself and kind of their connection to the committee?
Sure, we can go back through that. I don't see Alyssa Newsom here. Desiree is here. We can certainly do that before we do the straw poll. Just getting names at this point.
I know that Alyssa and Kara were present at the last meeting, but some people cannot attend this meeting.
So with no other raised hands, either here or in the Zoom meeting, and we're getting up to 8:52. I want to give a few minutes for people to say why they're interested in being on this committee, and then we can move on with the straw poll for this. So on the list, we have Desiree Simmons first. And where's Desiree? Is she still here?
I'm here. Hold on. Let me see if I turn it all the way up. All right. Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'm Desiree Simmons, and I am a member of READY, Rising for Economic Democracy in IPSI, which was a group that helped to pass the CBO, which is my interest is in, and it looks like from the list that I'd be the one person from READY that is, and I think it would be important because we understand the CBO and the process and the intention behind it. So I'd love to help represent this process to success. Thank you.
Thank you, Desiree. We've heard from John. We have Tegwin John here in the Freight House. If you could address the group.
Hi, I am why I'm interested in being on this committee. I'm interested in advocating for the affordability of quote unquote affordable housing being built in IPSI with IPSI taxpayer support, because I cannot afford to live in this development, certainly, and I am a server with an associate's degree. So if I couldn't afford to live in this affordable housing, then who is it really affordable for, and why are we paying for it?
Thank you, Tegwin. Lisa Volker. I'm going to say.
Hi there. To be fully honest, I'm really interested in learning this process and what it means to be a resident who participates in this process. I work with teachers of K-12 students in the local area. And so we do predominantly place-based education that's stewardship and environmental justice focused. And so I'm learning to guide students through a civic engagement process. And so I've been doing my own for the last several years of that. And so I have that personal interest in understanding just how this works. And also I just like the creative process. And I think that it would be fulfilling and also sort of be in service of finding some creative common ground that goes along with this development.
Great, thank you. And last is Alice.
Hi, yes, I'm Alice. I've been living in Ipsy for several years. I'm like from this area, Southeast Michigan originally. I've been involved with community organizing around here for a while. I know a lot of you in this meeting, which is really great. I am, like Tegvin, really stoked to advocate for affordable housing because I'm real tired of the way things are structured in this city to make things unaffordable for community members. I'm also just excited to learn more about like the development process and how getting buildings built here actually works, because I think that will inform or give me more knowledge about how to make things more affordable for residents. And I think that could be a really good opportunity. That's all. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Alice. So I want to point out here that during the last meeting, there was a lot of comments and questions about the makeup of this committee, and it is in the ordinance that members of the committee have to be residents of the city of Ypsilanti and not Superior Township or Ypsilanti Township or someplace else. And so with this, if you are not a resident, if your name is on the list and you're not a resident, it would be nice to acknowledge that now. Otherwise, this will all be vetted when the applications, because we're expecting applications from folks that aren't here. All of those applications will be taken and vetted for people who actually live in the city. So just to put that out there. So at this point, we can try the straw poll, and the one person that is here who can fill out the paper form, and then I will leave this to who's controlling this. John, so Andrew Helenka will be doing the so. And remember that you can designate 3 people apiece. Tegvin.
Including myself.
We'll give them another minute or so. At 2's fine. All right. So if you haven't haven't made your choices, please do that. We're going to give this another 30 seconds, and then we'll end the poll.
Please raise your hand if you are still completing the poll.
Anybody raising their hand? All right, so we're going to close this off, and then we can see the results. So, as you can see, Desiree has quite a few people supporting that, as well as John and Tegwin and Lisa, and then some other folks. And so we will send this information to council when it comes up. We'll present the top 3 people here from this meeting, and everybody else will be listed as well. And we will go from there. At this point, this was the last thing on our list. So I just want to thank everybody for being here and participating in this and being patient. Having been this the first time we've gone through this and having some technical difficulties, we've learned a lot from going through this process. And we will continue to learn a lot going through this process. And so I want to thank you again for attending and for your participation and all the great ideas for the benefits. And we'll get those organized and have those ready for the committee and council. So thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.